discussion and presentation is, well, I know Janine. I'm not sure if I know the other young lady over there.
Lexi.
Hi, Lexi. How are you?
Good.
And they're from WEN, and they're gonna present, discuss legislation on how youth access and purchase tobacco and vape products. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Go ahead.
So thank you for allowing us to be here tonight and present. Again, I'm Lexi Popovich. I work for the American Lung Association. So I'm just going to give a little bit of rundown about what we're here to present, just a few minutes, some education about it, and then I'll pass that over to Janine, and then we can kind of open it up for discussion or any questions that you guys do have. So we go around and educate to different town boards and village boards about, it's called retailer density or point of sale policies. So recently, in the past few years, with the vaping and e-cigarette epidemic that we've kind of seen in all the municipalities around the county and then around the country as well, we are really trying to educate on policies that can kind of curb access to e-cigarettes, those that can curb accessibility for youth to these deadly products. So in New York State, we are a preemption state. That means that the state allows municipalities to create local policies that can kind of curb use of where retailers are and where they can be in a certain municipality. So that's what a point of sale policy. It's the point of sale where you can buy and purchase tobacco and vape retailers. So what we educate about is things we've worked with other towns. So the town of Brighton and the town of Perrington, we have worked with on a zoning policy. So they have both zoned, Brighton has zoned their vape shops to the adult use entertainment zones. So those are primarily away from schools. Those are away from youth center locations. Perrington has also zoned their vape and tobacco retailers to their adult use areas. And the reason to do so is to keep, those tobacco and vape retailers away from schools where kids can kind of walk across. It's known that if they're within 1,000 feet of schools or youth center locations, that they're more likely to access these products, to use these products, and to become addicted to these products. So again, those are the two towns we have worked with. Right now we're working with Irondequoit as well. So those are the two zoning policies, but we also provide education on licensing policies. So that is when you can attach a license to some of the retailers. If, say, they're selling to minors, there can be different violations or stipulations that happen. And of course, we're not here to shut anyone down. We're pro small business, but we're also pro protecting the health of our young adults in Webster as well. So in terms of licensing and zoning policies, I did provide information on a map that we have. I'm not sure if anyone's taken a look at it, but it shows where your tobacco and vape retailers are in Webster and the relation to youth center locations. So again, we're here to kind of educate the board and answer any questions. I know that with Irondequoit moving in this direction for licensing and zoning policies, I know there's a lot of interest in a couple other towns and villages across the county that want to kind of cap the number of retailers in the town. Along with capping the number of retailers, you can decide where each vape and tobacco retailer can be. Again, we have zoning in adult use areas, but you can cap, say, the number at 5 tobacco and vape retailers allowed in the town of Webster. And through attrition over time, you can leave it at that cap. You can create a 1,000-foot buffer around schools and youth center locations where no tobacco or vape retailer can exist around that 1,000-foot buffer. You can create a 1,000-foot buffer between retailers, so that's not a lot of high density in the town of Webster. So those are just kind of some of the things that we work on in the community. And again, we'll open up for any questions and discussion more, but I will pass this over to Janine.
Thank you, Lexi. Lexi is a member of the Webster Health and Education Network, and we've worked together on a variety of topics related to this area. And we know that youth vaping is a serious issue, and we've heard that both from the youth themselves and from parents. Vaping is, kids are putting many different things into electronic devices. Nicotine is the number one substance that's being vaped, and it is almost instantaneously addicting. And we've heard from youth about how difficult it is to stop using these devices. We have to, as a coalition, identify two substances at least that we're focusing on in terms of prevention. Our substances are nicotine and vaping them together, and alcohol, because we know that that is the highest, has the highest rate of use amongst youth. So we are asking that the board give this strong consideration, because you can have an impact on our future generations, our current generation and future generations in terms of this insidious epidemic, actually.
Thank you both. I just want to say I'm the town board representative on the Webster Health Education Network. And this is a presentation that we've been talking about doing at a workshop for probably well over a year. And then COVID struck and weren't able to come in and present. So I'm very pleased that you're both here tonight so that we could possibly take a look at this and talk about it, see what we might be able to do. Personally, I think that, I live in the village, and I know that there's a vape shop on Main Street, which is right down the road from Spry. Kids walk to and from school all the time, and it certainly is very available. I'm supposed to talk in my mic. Okay, thanks, Karen. So they certainly have access to that. You also focus on alcohol. I think alcohol sales to minors, to me, seems to be more regulated than perhaps some of the nicotine products. I doubt that a middle schooler can walk into a liquor store and buy a bottle of vodka. But I don't know if that's the case for vape shops. I'm sure it's supposed to be regulated, but I really don't know the details of that.
As you know, Patty, we've had lots of discussion about this on the coalition, but youth have very creative ways of getting what they want. Mm-hmm. Alcohol, whatever it is they want, they will find it. And really that's our goal tonight, is to not only ask for your assistance with this project, but to raise awareness in our community about, we might think that things are not accessible to kids, but they get it from other kids, they get it from older kids, they get it from families, parents, believe it or not. So our job is a pretty big one, and it's an important one. So just hoping to continue to work together with you all.
Thank you.
And I was wondering if anyone had any questions. I know that was just kind of a brief overview. It can be more logistical than that, obviously, with legal matters involved in terms of its legislative for zoning and licensing policies. But I wasn't sure if anyone had specific questions that we could answer and kind of get more in depth with that.
So obviously, it's against the law for anyone. Was it 21 or 18? Yeah,
21 now.
21
yep,
now,
New York
right?
State is tobacco 21.
So I read through the legislation, 276, and it's pretty comprehensive, and obviously I'll read through it again. But one thing I'm not in favor of, whether it be this legislation or other legislation, is government overreach. I absolutely understand there's an issue with vaping. You're 100% right. I do know that the kids are getting it online too, okay? So I think as our discussions move forward, we have to, walk a fine line between government overreach while at the same time addressing the issue. And it is an issue. I absolutely understand, and I greatly appreciate all this information. I have to go through the rest of this. I've read this. But I think further discussions are in order for sure. My question is, from an enforcement standpoint now, who or what entity would be, say if we had a problem with a local vape shop, reports were coming in. Is that an ATF issue, or is it a local police issue, or both?
So for Monroe County, it's called a TUPA. It's Adolescent Tobacco Use Prevention Act. So they actually do most of the underage checks around the county.
Right.
So that would just fall into the purview of things that they're already doing. So they can facilitate that. I know WEN and some other coalitions are actually doing other things, like educating about that as well. But yeah, usually that is a TUPA. So there's really no extra financial cost or anything like that. And I will say with the vapes, for New York State, they can no longer, kids cannot order vapes to private residences anymore. So that is something that did pass during COVID, actually, this past summer. So that is something that did pass.
Well, in response to, or actually to follow on Mr. Cahill's question, is that a Department of Health, Monroe County Department of Health, or is it a sheriff's unit? What is the enforcement unit?
So it's not county health. So a TUPA is under a county department. I'm not particularly sure, but I can send that website, and everyone can take a look at that. But yeah, it's not under the Board of Health, and it also depends. Say if you were to do a licensing policy through the municipal government, you can kind of do whatever you want through there. So it wouldn't be like a Board of Health. It'd be through the town of Webster. But a TUPA would still be doing checks across the board, regardless of if you say that you can zone tobacco retail shops to adult use areas. It really wouldn't change much. If we're talking about tobacco 21, then you kind of get into that, but that's already had passed in the state. But say you're just no longer giving licenses to those in maybe non-adult use zones, then there's really not much changing there.
So say, for example, one of our local gas stations, obviously they sell vape and cigarettes and tobacco.
Right.
Don't they already have to have a license to sell that?
Yes.
So by doing another license,
yes.
you're just making it more restrictive with another license, correct?
That's if you choose to go licensing, zoning different. Zoning, it would just kind of like Parrington and Brighton did. You just put an addendum in. But for licensing, yes, it would then be a local license that if they don't adhere to it, then, there could be violations and penalties.
Well, if they already have to have a license to sell tobacco, and they're in violation of that,
Right.
what's the enforcement? Who's the enforcer?
So you have to have a license under the state to have any vape or tobacco retailer. And that's the State Department of Health. So that's where that license comes from. But any type of licensing policy, you can just add into any type of code, and then you can say where, say if they do violate, the state doesn't say you have to, shut it down, but some places that are around the state that are municipal run, they can say you violated once or twice, we're not going to renew your license next year. Or if so they won't renew a license, and then you can't actually operate. No new license can come in or new employer and have a tobacco or vape retailer in that location. So those are just some of the small scale licensing things that they're kind of talking about.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I certainly agree with Councilman Cahill that we don't want to get into government overreach. But when we talk about zoning, we do zone adult use. And all that entails with adult entertainment. We do choose a zone for that in the town and where it's appropriate. And I don't know that I really want to entertain licensing and getting into all of that, but I think it's worth taking a look at perhaps including it in adult zones. And that does not count those that are already in existence. I mean, we can't put them out of business, and that's not our intent. But for future use, I think it's something we should take a look at.
And just so I want to make sure, the age to legally purchase tobacco or vape products, which is probably not considered tobacco, and alcohol, is 21.
Yes, so all,
Okay.
yep, in New York State, all vape, tobacco, nicotine products is 21.
Okay.
Two things. I'm aware that the Webster Police Department does compliance checks. So they will have a young person go with them into a store, and they will have the young person attempt to purchase. And 3 retailers were cited the last time they did compliance checks. They were supposed to do them again this past fall, but because of COVID, they weren't able to. So that's something that is in terms of their purview. They run compliance checks.
These are like the sting operations, in other words.
Yeah.
All right, what was the, of the 3 businesses that were found to sell to underage persons, what happened to them? You said they were cited, what did that mean?
I honestly don't know what
Okay.
happens when there's a follow-up. We just have, we use that data to try to say that 3 businesses were cited, and we want to reduce the number of those. So part of what we do as a coalition is offer education about the We Card training, so that businesses have a good basis on how to, and the importance of carding youth
Yeah.
or anybody that comes
But
in.
it was the Webster police in this case that did the investigation, and
Yes.
it was their personnel that went along with found the witnesses, if you will.
Yes.
Or the participants,
Yep.
okay.
And I just recently heard about the master plan, which includes plans for zoning. Is that something that's coming up soon that needs to be
Are
redone?
you talking about the comprehensive plan?
Comprehensive plan.
That's it.
Sorry.
There is definitely a plan to try to update the 2008 version of the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
But I don't think anybody on this board could sit here and tell you that it's going to start on a certain date. There are some foundational things we're doing. In fact, after this meeting, there's some code classes that are somewhat foundational to that.
Okay.
But that is when zoning will be addressed globally for the town.
But that's not something, zoning can be addressed separate from that, or no? No, it's only when the comprehensive plan is being,
Oh, no, we can.
No, you
Yeah,
can.
I mean, that's,
oh, you can do an addendum.
yeah, well, Charlie,
Well,
you're probably the best
you can
answer
make-
to this.
They can change zoning laws, add zoning laws, amend zoning laws at any time. Yeah, they can now. It's not limited to a comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is a guide that most municipalities use as a sort of a template. But no, in terms of any kind of legislation affecting zoning, the town's not limited to any time period or any other document. They can change the zoning laws or change zoning maps as they will, as they vote.
All right, thank you.
I also think it's important to note that Janine commented, they're certainly not anti-small business, and what you just said is that you go out and you offer training about We Card. So it's really more of a partnership
Yeah.
between the Webster Health Education Network, the school district, the town, the village, and in the community and the business people on keeping our youth healthy and helping them to make good choices.